Hi, I'm Maddie, and this is Movie Matic. This is actually our second episode,
I'm Vel.
and last night we rewatched in theaters uh, Luc Besson's 1997 The Fifth Element. So, I guess we're gonna talk about it, and hmm, when did you first see this film? Did you see it in 97?
Um, I saw it as soon as it came out to video.
Okay, we did not rent it, but I saw it pretty quickly after it hit like Cinemax or like HBO. I think it would have been HBO. So I probably saw it around 99, maybe, um, maybe a little bit sooner. So it's going into the plot of the film, just but I don't really want to do like a big breakdown like we did of No Escape. Maybe just like more of like an overview.
I mean, a lot of people are fairly familiar with this movie, although some younger generations seem to know the imagery, but don't per se know like the actual movie, the plot. But this movie does
You
not.
ran into that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've talked to people that are like, "Oh, I've totally seen memes and all this stuff," but they've never
Okay.
actually seen the movie. So they're like,
Okay.
they know there's this multipass thing. They
Yeah.
know there's like Bada Boom or
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but it just this movie does not disappoint, and it doesn't really seem to get old. It is a very unique look at a future universe for sure.
Definitely. I guess basic rundown of the plot is do we know what year it is? It doesn't really. Well, it's 1916 plus 300 years later. So then it would be like, wasn't it? It'd be like 2216.
Sounds about right.
So it's the year 2216. How I guess that's a weird. It's clunky, but I guess that's what it is.
They were trying to just set it far enough in the future that it probably
2216.
Yeah.
I guess you would say.
Think about all the other future movies that have come out that we've hit the dates.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 2216, and basically a giant ball of evil, like it looks like a flaming planet, is hurtling towards Earth, and it's up to oh no, should we do like a little basic? I feel like we shouldn't cover the flashback at the beginning.
No, just basic plot point. Of
Okay.
What are we gonna see? It's obviously good versus evil.
Yeah, Bruce Willis is a New York cabbie in the future, looking pretty rugged with like a short, like bleach blonde hair, and the scruff going on. And he's a cabbie in Brooklyn or the Bronx. I think it's Brooklyn.
It's Brooklyn.
And he lives alone in like a little flat, and this evil thing is hurtling towards Earth. The government is aware of it, and we are aware of. There's this kind of like small secret order of priests. There's only two in the modern one, but it's like they are to. There's something with the elements, and we're set up that there's this being that's the fifth element. So you have like fire, water, earth, and air are the four elements, and then there's this secret fifth element that is this.
It's what focuses them all together.
Yeah, it's this perfect being that was kind of like generated.
It's engineered.
Yeah, it's this engineered being to weaponize the elements against the forces of evil.
And we don't exactly know who, but we do know who the custodians of it are, and that have placed it on Earth 300 years previous to these events to keep it safe, but then they decide that it is not safe.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of what happens as this evil approaches, and the weapon is trying to be brought back to Earth, because for some reason Earth is this target, and Earth is actually the focal point to where this weapon to prevent this needs to be released from.
And essentially, it's not the future, and this good alien race is bringing the fifth element back to Earth to knock out this evil planet thing, and the Monachuan. Okay, yeah, sure. The Monahoosits.
The Monahoosits. That essentially looked like
what if Bruce Willis said that? The Mona what's it?
Yeah, luckily it didn't really come up. And they seem to be pretty well, like, known by our government and stuff. Like, every time they're talking about them, it's just like, okay, flag them into our air, our space or whatever.
So yeah, alien life seems pretty well accepted at this point, and they don't really question, like, the president kind of accepts this mumbo jumbo kind of quickly, because I guess they ran out of options. So they don't really, like...
Cornelius comes forward just kind of going like, hey, I know what this is. Boom, here's a book with like all of these old, what do you want to call them? Texts and prints and things.
Cornelius is an older priest that's like specializes in protecting these stones, so we have to go into the stones real quick.
The 4 stones represented by vague wavy lines.
We should have gone over the flat at the beginning, because it kind of sets it all up, but it doesn't really matter at this point in the conversation. There are these 4 stones that represent the 4 basic elements, and then you have the 5th element. And you need the stones and you need the 5th element to combat this evil. And basically they crash these more like annoying kind of evil aliens
ambush them.
Ambush the good aliens delivering the 5th element to Earth, and they recover it though, and they basically reclone the 5th element.
Yeah, through a really, really unique, pretty cool sequence.
And they keep thinking it's gonna be like a man.
Right. Yeah. It's implied, like, can't wait to meet him.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful woman.
It's a very beautiful woman, played by Mila Jovovich in one of her earlier starring roles.
Yeah. Mila Jovovich plays Lilu, who is, right? Lilu.
She is the 5th element.
And she is the 5th element, and she has this kind of like shoulder-length, scraggly, like orange, like bright orange hair, basically. And
although I've always kind of thought in watching the movie through the revival process, when they bombard her with the rays to actually harden her skin and stuff, it's like almost like a side effect, is that possibly it like made the hair this color.
That's true. Like that. Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately it doesn't matter. It's kind of an aesthetic choice by the director.
Oh, it totally is. But I've just I mean, her haircut is the same as in The Professional, basically, or Leon. If you look at Natalie Portman.
Yeah, well, hers is more like
they're
shorter.
All that same style. They're sort of like a bob.
Yeah, well, like Besson's made like the same film like 4 times. He did it again with Lucy, which I still haven't seen yet.
I haven't.
But
we'll watch it.
But I'm a big fan of Nikita, actually. That's still my favorite.
Nikita's pretty classic at this point.
Of his. I feel like not many people have seen it.
I got
especially because it is in French, and like Leon is in English, and everyone, loves that film. It's kind of problematic at this point. But
it is, as long as you kind of take it for what you're seeing, and then of it's like kind of like implying or metaphor.
Well, we're not gonna get into that.
But check out the films of this director.
But back to the 5th element. Basically they reclone Lilu, and she breaks out. She can't speak English. She doesn't understand English yet.
She has a high capacity for learning very
Yeah.
quickly.
And we are shown very quickly in how she escapes that she is very physically agile.
And analytical.
Yeah. And she learns very quickly. Yeah. And she breaks out and she like jumps out of the building basically. She
gets into the ventilation system after just diving through the wall, essentially.
And
in a very dramatic escape scene.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, pretty great stuff. And she
great physical acting from Mila. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the kind of like iconic sequence where like she's like outside the building on this ledge and she's seeing futuristic New York City right in front of her, and she's a literal alien.
She's blown away. The sunlight's hitting her. She's seeing cars flying every which direction, trains going down the side of the building. It's like, there's no up or down to how this is really happening to a certain degree. Little interesting thing that I think is kind of neat to point out is the subtlety of things that are kind of, I don't know, implied or people miss sometimes, but, she has a tattoo on her inner wrist that is the same symbols that you see on the stones for earth, fire, water, air. And I've heard people, who obviously aren't paying close attention go like, how would she have the tattoo if she was just cloned? But she's cloned from her hand. That is actually inside a piece of armor, and if you look, that is where the tattoo is still on her wrist. They just reattach it.
Okay, very cool.
That's kind of cool. I like
that. Okay. I just figured it's also kind of built into her DNA because she was engineered. I really didn't question
I think that too, but if you do pay attention, because they clone her from the hand and everything attaches back to that, it's just right there on her wrist.
Exactly.
So it's just dumb luck, basically, that somehow that's the hand that survived.
Yeah. And basically, just rewinding real quick, Bruce Willis is a cabbie, and he is
highly decorated ex-military.
Highly decorated, and he's now kind of in this like schlubby apartment. He's kind of slumming it, and he has his mom calling and nagging him nonstop,
as well as his old war buddy and commanding officer that happens to be now his cabbie dispatch kind of guy. So Daddy Bruce Willis with a cute little kitty working as a cab driver in Brooklyn, New York in the future. Happens to be driving along when Lilu dives off of this building as the police are closing in on her, and she crashes into his cab, and this is literally how she falls into his life, and all this begins. And
she falls into his cab, and he immediately loses all the points left on his license.
He's knocked down to 1 point on his license, which we don't really necessarily know what it means, but it's like he needs these credits to keep maintaining his cab
it's just assumed that he's gonna like he needs this so that he can keep making money, you know. And he the Fifth Element, Lilu, crashes into his cab, and then the cops come quick. Well, he pulls over, and he sees her, and he immediately falls in love.
He's soaking it in pretty good.
And the cops come, and they're like, "Hey, like you have an unregistered like fugitive in your car because she just fled," and it was like, "You need to turn her over." And he thinks about it, and she like pleads.
First he goes along with it because he's got the 1 point on his license. and kind of trying to play by the rules.
He was like, "Who is this girl?"
He can't understand anything she's saying.
And she sees a sign in the back of his cab that says like, if you could see like missing people, call, and says like, "Please help." And she just like sounds out, "Please help," and she just keeps playing on his heartstrings. And he just says, "Fuck it," and he speeds off
while still attached to the cop car via tether.
Exactly. And
then all these cars are flying and levitating.
He grabs her and like
they go through a car chase. They end up hiding out. Eventually, the cops kind of blow by, and he. Where does he go from there? He takes her back to the apartment? No.
He figures out how to take her
Oh, right.
to Ian home.
Right, yeah. He takes her to Cornelius. Because she says Cornelius or something like that. Like somehow he looks up who that would be, and he shows up at his door. And when he talks about the tattoo on her wrist, Cornelius instantly recognizes who it is, and he's like hopeful again because he was really devastated when the ship was destroyed, and he didn't know anything about the government's attempt to rebuild the survivor, which is basically a fragment.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of drops her off and he's out of there because they kind of push him away. It's just like, oh, thanks for your help, get out of here, whatever. And he just goes he limps back to his apartment in his busted up cab.
Yeah.
And he's talking to his boss basically, and he's like kind of going like, yeah, you ever just think that you kind of met that one, but she kind of got away kind of thing, and he's kind of distant and stuff, and
well, basically, there's two which I was a little confused on. Is that they rig, because he is ex-military, they rig him to go on board to. What's the point?
Well, because they find out basically that the stones were not with the ship. They were given to somebody else. And the contact is going to be in this place called Floston Paradise, which is actually an ocean planet and kind of like a cruise ship type scenario. And so they tap him to take him there to retrieve the stones and meet up with the rest of the military in attempts to... I don't know what they think they're going to do. I don't think they know anything. They're just kind of trying to put the pieces together. So you basically have this military effort as well as this ancient order of monks, I guess that's what you would call them, that are, sworn to protect the fifth element and make sure that the evil is stopped. But in order to do that, they basically rig a contest for croquettes, which are, more of a European thing. I don't think anybody in the U.S. really ever talks about croquettes being a snack food or anything like that. So he basically wins tickets for a vacation, and that's going to be how they're getting him over to this planet and onto this ship. And then subsequently, Lilu comes back to his apartment because she remembers his name and because they need to get her to Floston. So they actually, the monk Cornelius, he's going to pull a gun essentially on
and he's to steal
Dallas
the tickets.
And steal the tickets to take her because he has a younger protege that's going to pose as Dallas and take Lilu to Floston Paradise to meet the diva. Which is a very neat character.
But anyway, they get to we're kind of summarizing the film again, but we need to touch on Gary Oldman.
Big time. So you have Zorg. Emmanuel Zorg. Or Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg, I believe is the full name. And he is the black market businessman, got his hand in everything, kind of, doesn't care about being evil or underhanded or anything.
He's like a super evil Tyrell, like from Blade Runner, like the Tyrell Corporation, because technically Bruce Willis's cabbie company, what he works for Zorg, it seems like he kind of like employs like a lot of, if not most people, but he's this, I guess, I didn't catch his first name, so that's telling me he's like from like New Orleans, and he's
he's got a little
Southern,
bit of a twang accent.
Very Southern twang accent.
And he's just a super profiteer. I mean, he actually has a whole spiel at one point about how, death, destruction, and chaos and all these things always breed new things, new life, new ways to capitalize and create, and he finds beauty in that.
And really, he knows he's a monster. He even says it.
Oh, he totally accepts.
He's a terrible. He knows he's and he's working with this evil planet thing so that it'll like
it can
wipe out like most of humanity or
exactly.
something.
It essentially, at some point, sensed him and knew that he was the most evil, corrupt person on the planet, and like literally got on Jack's satellites and got on the phone and was like, "Hey, Zorg," like it's kind of the impression they give you.
Yeah, like, and it's like, so this thing's like sentient, and it's like
it's way
calls
sentient.
him on the phone. This evil planet,
yeah, and like lays out some plan or something.
But like, how is it gonna let him? It was gonna like wipe out humanity. How is he gonna like profit off that if he's gone? There's no way that thing was.
I don't think he cares as long as he was one of the people pulling the pin on the destruction of everything.
Okay.
It's like it's almost like a self-satisfying thing or something.
Maybe he figured he could have gotten off the planet.
Yeah, that is one thing. It's like it seems like the evil is gonna wipe out things planet by planet or something. So it's like if he gets off Earth, he's already got all these connections. He's gonna.
One thing I didn't understand was when the evil is near, it like causes a black goo.
Yeah,
I never understood that.
Sometimes I think that's just for dramatic effect. You can hear there's like almost like sub sounds that they're cranking up to just make it sound like there's pressure going on and stuff. So it like essentially just starts squeezing them out or something. And at one point it does start doing it to Zorg when it's kind of going like, "Hey, get your crap together. You're not you're losing your time frame here, buddy." And it's weird. It's like an oil kind of ooze stuff. It's coagulated blood almost or something.
So we basically find out that this kind of like marauding alien race that crashed the good aliens that was hosting the Fifth Element, they're working for him.
Yeah, the Mangalore.
Yeah. Now, is his last name Zorg? Because I just want to call Gary Oldman.
Yeah, Gary Oldman. If you call him Zorg, that's
okay. So we're gonna call him Zorg. He's definitely intelligent, but he's backstabbing. He's manipulative, and of course he's like comfortable with being a mass murderer.
Yeah, he likes being a monster. He finds himself good at it.
Yeah.
But he does have little oversights, which Cornelius in a conversation actually kind of points out to him that it's always
brilliant
like
scene.
A little little tiny thing that you will overlook will be the big what breaks the cogs and brings down your whole thing.
So it turns out that marauding alien race was working for him to get the stones for the evil planet, because that's the only thing that can stop it.
And a little side note, these aliens can, for short periods of time, apparently take on the appearance of other people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a minor thing, but it's good to know.
Yeah. And so basically Bruce Willis takes Lilu to the cruise ship. He basically steals her away.
Well, he finds them there.
Cornelius hops on board.
Well, he ends up, going through the landing gear inside the ship and has a pretty unpleasant time getting to Flosston.
Yeah.
But does in fact get there.
And he basically he's treated, since he won this contest, he's basically treated as like this special guest, and Chris Rock is there.
Chris Tucker.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I meant Chris Tucker.
So here we get Chris Tucker as Chris Ruby Tucker. Rod, this super hyper realistic cartoon character, like a snork thing, pompadour-y something going on, but radio show host, and he's able to run this radio show from a headset and apparently another interview mic that's built into a scepter-y staff kind of cane thing that he uses. He's in, leopard print onesies, and he's bouncing all over the place. He has an entourage, and every woman he comes into contact with is just like quivering.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, exactly.
And apparently, other people who were up for the role were people like Michael Jackson and Prince were kind of in mind. So everything about the garb and sort of the basis for where Chris Tucker obviously just took it to 11.
He's very flamboyant in the fact that it's like very much like Prince, like very
Princey.
Yeah, but with the loudmouth Chris Tucker.
Yeah, all the Chris Tucker in there.
So it was the right move because casting Michael Jackson or Prince, they're pretty quiet.
They wouldn't have done it.
Where Chris Tucker's just like going like cranking it to 11.
Michael Jackson just couldn't act on that level. Prince would have been too self-conscious in a way. It would have been too out of character for him.
Yeah.
So Chris Tucker really just, I know Chris Tucker kind of took an interesting path in his acting career and whatnot, largely sided with Jackie Chan after a while and then just kind of bowed out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took everything he had done and just put it into that character on every level. It's kind of there. Some people do find the character a little annoying, especially towards the end, because there's a lot of screaming and a lot of repeating of themselves and stuff like that.
So when Bruce Willis basically just has to deal with it.
Yeah, so he wants Bruce Willis to just like join him in his whatever you want to call it.
Basically,
crapulence.
He's trying to figure out where the stones are undercover, and he's working for the U.S. government again. He doesn't really have a choice, and Lilu's kind of hanging back. And then she kind of runs across the stones herself.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of a moment, but she gets attacked, and then simultaneously, Bruce Willis is watching this opera put on by the diva, which then also gets attacked.
Mm-hmm. And the diva, we got word she's involved in this plot somehow.
She's the contact. She has the stone,
and she's this tall blue alien that has a beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever get the name of the voice. Yeah, it's like a literal synthesizer of voice.
Yeah, and she's watching this performance, and then the marauding aliens come in and attack the performance, and she gets shot in the stomach, and Bruce Willis takes her because he's in like one of like the front
he's trying
rows,
to protect her,
and she tells him that the stones are inside of her.
Yeah, protect the stones. Where are the stones? They're in me. And he literally has to reach in through a bullet hole in her stomach and pull these things out, wraps them in his jacket, and gets like an incredibly unique movie, but has a lot rooted in a lot of classic sci-fi future films. I mean, you've got Blade Runner going on, and then other elements of comic books and other short stories. There's definitely more Philip K. Dick in there.
Yeah.
There's, like we talked about, a lot of Valerian influence.
And I read the Inkle by Alejandro Jodorowsky, the filmmaker. And so this is and the writer-director is French,
and wrote the short story that became this as like a high school in-class assignment or just in high school or something.
And the film's very over the top, and it's kind of in your face.
Yeah, a lot of people comment on that it's very vivid and bright future, although it is also dirty and grungy, and you almost have this Jetsons-like thing where the higher up everything is gone, the lower and grosser it is.
Yeah, it's almost like watching a cartoon.
Oh, it's very cartoon.
Yeah, and Besson has a penchant for action. And this is pretty action-oriented.
But very well balanced.
Very, very. I think this is an incredibly well-paced film. It clocks in probably right around 2 hours, I would say.
Yes.
Maybe a little more.
Slightly.
But as I was saying before, when I was younger, the film felt like way longer. But now watching it as an adult, I was like, okay, this thing actually like moves. And like her fashion, the way she looks, the way he looks,
become so iconic.
Everything's very kind of meticulously chosen.
But very minimalistic. Like, I don't think there's almost a single woman that isn't sporting midriff in there unless they're in a long coat or something.
Like pretty much like any...
And that was an observation.
That was bizarre, that pretty much any woman under the age of like 30 is a sex object.
Yeah, and then most of the men seem to be pretty acceptable, like in their like anywhere from like mid-30s to like 50 something, and like scruffy, like acne damage. They didn't really try to find like pretty men for the movie. I mean, Bruce is kind of pretty at the time.
Yeah, like pretty action-oriented film, I would say. But as you were saying, there's like a good balance, and there's quite a unique soundtrack to the film as well. I think it's very well edited.
Oh, incredibly. And it's definitely a movie you can kind of rock out to, which is,
Yeah.
you know, some things accomplish that, and obviously you have musical films, but this just like everything, you know, swells into the scenes very well. The rhythms kind of start carrying you into stuff, little musical cues.
I find it pretty sensual as well as his other films. The soundtrack kind of has it gives me kind of a bit of like a sensual.
It's got a little bit of a world sound to it, although it's like a lot of like accordion or melodeon or something like that, or maybe even I'm not exactly sure which the instrument is, but you do hear similar in like Leon and stuff like that.
Yeah, and a Nikita especially too.
Right.
So that's what like you can definitely hear throughout his film. So like it basically becomes like I'd say pretty action oriented, especially in the second half. I mean, there's a good amount of chasing, and it's pretty well sprinkled out throughout the film.
Once stuff really drops, you know, a little ways into the getting to Floston, it just rolls pretty much through the rest of the movie. But then, oddly enough, we were talking about how later on the clock is just ticking down. The movie actually slows down more. And like, you know, the minutes become quite a bit of time.
But that's actually great because like you're stuck in that moment when it's like basically Zorg comes to the ship to steal the stones because he finds out that they're on board, and he steals a case.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, he finally just kind of drops it and just goes like, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah,
and he gets very much involved and is right on their tail for a while.
And he takes the case, which is acquired by the marauding aliens. I forgot their race's name, but he gets back on to. He sets a self-destruct. He's just gonna kill everyone on board.
Yeah, he thinks he's got it.
He doesn't care, and then he flies off. He opens up the case and realizes it's still not in there.
Yeah, which is kind of a running thing.
Yeah, we didn't touch on earlier, but that's okay.
It's not.
And so he has to go back to the ship, and there's like 5 minutes left before like everyone's evacuating. Because like a bomb threat detector goes
they literally
off.
have bomb detectors.
Yeah, and so this is kind of a hellish future in the fact that it's very like what we would imagine as like kind of like Orwellian like dictatorship, like if you like a character like knocking on the glass angrily at basically at the airport or like bus station, like immediately like guns come down and you're threatened and you're like, you need to put your hands into this thing. That's a running gag.
They're and you once you kind of know what they are, you notice them around more. These circles where it's like if the authorities roll up on you, you're going to be expected to put your hands in the circles.
Exactly. And if not, you get taken out, whether or not you get subdued or just eliminated completely. So
their court system must be very interesting.
Yeah, and they have a facial recognition system of where they can run your whole like record basically. So that's kind of scary, and I have a feeling that's probably eventually what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, they have drones, already.
I mean, facial ID detectors is already becoming a thing, and like social credits and things like that in other countries. But anyway, how the film is made. We've talked about the editing. It's kind of like a live action like comic book, more like a graphic novel.
Very graphic novel feel.
and not like a Sin City, like,
No.
but like this is,
it's not as dark and gritty. It is.
and for being 1997, I'd say most of the CGI effects really hold up. There's one or two things that, like, when the arms come out and build her, that for a second is kind of like, eh.
But it's also supposed to be kind of like robotic and very kind of stiff and
but you can
angular.
tell it's very CG. But like, there's like the giant ship at the beginning, like everything like actually looks really good and isn't dated for being now like scary to think about. But this is a 25-year-old film, like 7, 8, 9. So like minus, so this is like give or take. This is like,
it's amazing to see like Bruce Willis now having basically retired from film due to health and whatnot. And then see him very much in his heyday. Yeah,
like now this is, I would say, getting towards the end of his like action-oriented run, starting with Die Hard, and then he made the 2 more Die Hards. But then he did make 2 more Die Hards after Fifth Element. But I feel like this is kind of the end of like the prime Bruce Willis era that we think, because it's like Die Hard with a Vengeance came out in 95. It's one of my favorite films. I love that film.
That's a lot of fun.
So he made like so many action films in that time. He made like Last Boy Scout, Striking Distance. He was just like all the rage. He was
still cranking them out.
Still an A-lister, and he was in Pulp Fiction.
He would have been wrapped up with Demi Moore by this point, pretty much.
Yeah, well, Striptease came out the same year as this, I believe, 97 or 98. I never saw Striptease, but I don't know when they got divorced. But
we'll have to watch Striptease one of these days.
Yeah, okay, all right. It's no Showgirls.
There's no Showgirls, no Cloud McLaughlin in there, but still, Striptease is interesting.
I'd definitely be willing to check it out. But
I mean, just to see Vin Rhames putting like stuff into yogurt and stuff, trying to like start a lawsuit is well worth it.
Vin Rhames is in it too.
Oh,
so he has like a Bruce Willis connection all up in this fitness.
I believe it's Vin Rhames in there.
But yeah, Bruce Willis is looking pretty good in this. He's in good shape. He's got that more gruffer look. Like he's definitely like.
But everything about it feels perfect for the role.
Oh, exactly.
Absolutely perfect. Although it is interesting the way they set up, because you see little flashes of pictures of him when he was more in service and just being exited, as well as like, I'm sure if you slowed down freeze frames, there's like a picture of him and his ex-wife. But if you look when he goes to pick up his license, which shows him with like a Van Dyke or whatever, you can actually see there's shears where it's like he supposedly has just stopped wearing facial hair to kind of like, I don't know, breathe a little new identity into himself. And probably make himself look quite a bit younger, so he's not looking so.
Did he have the blonde hair in the old photo or no?
No, I don't think he does.
So he dyed his hair too.
Yeah.
So he's like bleach blonde, like in this, but like short hair.
Yeah,
it looks good. And he's got like kind of like he wears that kind of like
muscle tee,
orange muscle tee tank thing, and
the color palette is just completely dialed to Milla's character.
Yeah. I feel like probably owing a lot to like John Woo, but even like that moment in Die Hard when he's on the roof and then like he ties the hose around and he jumps off. In this, he like literally runs off a balcony, like shooting, and he just like crash lands.
Yeah, good stuff.
So yeah, cool moment. That's like the big action set piece is on this cruise ship.
Yeah, which is all very much set up for like, you know, when the military taps in for the mission, they're just kind of like, well, you're the only person with all these credentials, and it's like you're seeing this list of like he's qualified for everything. He's got medals of honor. He's got all this stuff, and he seems to like not care about them.
And they kind of joke that it's like this was supposed to be kind of like a more subtle mission.
Yeah.
And it's like he just like basically once the shit hits the fan, it's like all bets are off. And when it's like all bets are off. And then,
Totally.
like that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So I love when he pulls that explosive apart and throws it and it sticks into the balcony. And just really creative stuff.
Yeah.
Really
a couple
good.
of funny, a couple of gags, like laugh. There's quite so it seems like they asked at the beginning of our showing how much of the audience has seen the film. I'd say about half.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a bit of younger kids in the audience, and they hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Most of them, and there was quite a bit of laughing. So I guess they still found it pretty funny.
Yeah, and a lot of the humor is lended to a very unique style that I'm trying to think of other movies that do it, where you end up telling a joke by editing between two places with things that may or may not be happening at the same time. So Zorg would, be getting pissed off, whereas this or something then cuts to Lilu, kind of as the punchline to that little joke, and then back again. And it happens at least twice in the movie.
It's great.
It's very well done.
It actually works really well. Like these kind of jumping around in time. Feels like he did that in Leon as well.
That's true.
And I didn't mention it, but like Leon, I feel like now it is, but like Stateside, it was known as the Professional for years with Natalie Portman.
Yeah, that's how I was first
Jean
introduced
Reno.
to it.
But I mean that's what we had.
And then
for
you find
years.
out about Leon.
Yeah, and then that's the longer cut.
And then you never go back.
I finally, so I heard mixed things, and then I finally watched it, and it's just the superior version of the film. If you want to watch just like an action movie, The Professional, because it is shorter and it's just more told as like a straightforward action film. But Leon's the full film, and it adds way more character depth.
And it gets brutal. I mean, like just like, I mean, go check it out. I mean, but know that you're getting if you were to compare it to The Fifth Element, Fifth Element has some violence and stuff, but it is definitely all played off, by the time you get through the film. You've laughed, you've gotten sucked into more action, but then Leon, it's like, you're like, crap. Like, people die like that. That was brutal.
Yeah.
That was cold-blooded.
It's just so much machine guns and firing and nonstop, and it's upsetting. But he plays with that, and Gary Oldman is the villain in that film as well, and then to see him, and he's
still completely different,
and he's pretty over the top in Leon, and in this he is also just like kind of chewing. He's not chewing his scenery, but he's relishing.
I mean, he understands his character so well, and Leon, his character is very drug driven, and it controls his mood, and actually
he's
does
on like
things
speed or something.
He's just hopped up the whole time, and he's very much like into being this turn on a dime, like you think that's it, bam, kind of thing. Where like Zorg is just like like you said, he's breathing in his own vapors quite a bit, and like magnificent eye twitches and little things, but at the same time, even like the garb that he's selling, on maybe any other actor or a different performance might be a little absurd, and it is absurd,
but you're so invested into him, and not like. He has like a limp, and he has like a steel boot
so there's a little clanking limp.
And he has like half of his head, half
plastic
his
thing with his hair
like
pulled through it.
And he has just like a plastic half helmet on. Clearly like probably some sort of like damage.
Damage or an enhancement. We don't even know anything about like future. I mean, like he looks kind of silly, and he's wearing this like kind of shark skin, like color changey kind of vinyl-y outfit thing.
Yeah, a lot of like vinyl-y, like baggy vinyl.
But for all we know, he is like the like up there with Ruby Rod in terms of like like this is fashion in the future and whatnot. So.
And but he's pretty funny in it.
Oh, he's great.
And
Gary Oldman performances are. I can't think of one I haven't really enjoyed, and then right down to him playing like Commissioner Gordon, it's just like, oh, okay, let's stick him in more of a good guy role, and he still just knocks it out of the park, and just no expectations will meet up with what he delivered.
Yeah.
And actually, getting back to like the dynamics in a lot of these movies that we've talked about, like Leon and even Nikita and stuff, like there's always an interesting dynamic, and I think you were kind of talking about before, even like no matter what, you kind of in a way know dynamic wise where you're going to end up in the movie, because you always have this like two people caring about each other, two people like essentially growing and learning off of each other. Like there's a lot of similarities. And also I wanted to touch on, we talked about Gary Oldman and Leon, but I still think that's got to be arguably Natalie Portman's best work, being one of her first early films as a child. I mean, I think that's a really great role, and it's very connected to all of this other work.
One thing, minor spoiler for both films, but the scene of Natalie Portman at the door, begging him to get in, is very reminiscent of the cab when Mila Jovovich is begging
this
for
meek
him
desperation.
To help. Yes, and it's this, and there's definitely a theme in his films of very innocent women, or in Leon's sense, a young girl,
a little bit of a coming of age kind of thing.
But and then but they're like a killer or something. But then also a lot about learning. Like there's this whole thing about learning. In Nikita is essentially Pygmalion, or like My Fair Lady, and this idea that it's like you're gonna take this like rough and tumble young woman and you're gonna teach her to be a proper lady. In Nikita, she not only learns how to become a proper lady, she becomes a killer as a trained assassin as well. In Leon, she becomes a trained assassin, and in The Fifth Element, she's very agile, and she's also learning through watching. So there's these similar themes. And in Lucy, which I haven't even seen yet, she's an assassin, and she has like all this brain power. It's these like recurring themes in this.
Although The Fifth Element works a little backwards, because in a sense, in Nikita and Owen, you have these more innocent characters almost shedding some of their humanity to have this stiff upper lip in order to do what they need to do. Lilu doesn't know anything, and she essentially is like this Swiss Army knife of, we don't know what she's capable of, but she is a weapon. But she learns humanity in the process. So it does kind of work a little differently, to where like in Leon, Leon has essentially been a shut-in and has kind of not lived his life and doesn't have as much humanity. He's a cold-blooded killer. But Natalie Portman gives that back to him and shows him how to love and stuff. So there's some of those themes, but it does work a little backwards compared to some of the other films.
And in the same way, because she comes from a very damaged, fucked up, like,
her
home
family's
life.
terrible.
Yeah, like her dad like hits her, is like horribly abusive, and he's involved and whatever.
Yeah, he's essentially a drug handoff.
But like, so there's these like running themes that are like borderline problematic, with these kind of like childlike.
It's close to reality.
Younger girls that are being taken under the wing by older men. But like, because like Lilu, even though she's basically like centuries old, she still is this kind of like childlike. She doesn't understand.
We have reason to believe she's spent most of her life in a state of suspended animation, hibernation.
Exactly. And then she spends a lot of time at a computer learning, but because she is a perfect being, she can just rapidly read through this and just learn immediately. And actually, by the end of the film, which only maybe 48 hours have passed.
Yeah,
maybe
she's not around
she
much.
can
hits the
speak
ground
English.
running.
She can understand and speak some English by the end of the film.
Yeah, they're having pretty good conversations by the
Yeah.
end of things.
So, in the fact that they can communicate, yeah.
In comparing the moment in the cab to the door in Leon, I believe both have a moment where the character is like bathed in like salvation light.
Yeah, okay. I didn't notice it. That's definitely
You know, when the door
the crux.
opens and that light
In
hits her and
Leon,
she's like breathes that sigh
I
of
don't
relief.
remember that in the Fifth Element.
It's there. I'm
Okay.
trying to remember which scene it's in, but
Go back.
there is a scene that does very similar.
I thought when she is on the ledge of the building from escaping after being like basically like recloned,
Mm-hmm.
there are these like close-ups of her where she's in like the left of the frame and they're using a longer lens on her and we see her eyes and then there's close-ups on her eyes and it's photographed so beautifully and it's not shocking to know that the director married her. Like I forget if it was before or after the film.
I believe it was after the film.
But like he's clearly like
he was very close to her in that film. He coached her a lot. The Monotone language that she spoke was very specific, and she would do interviews after the movie and actually spout all these phrases, and she did understand a bit of the mechanics, but that was very precise that he wanted to communicate to her and that she get that through into the character. It wasn't just gibberish.
Yeah. And there's references to again the fact that she's a perfect being. So in this sort of like ideal body standard of what we think of like modern like 20th and 21st century whatever.
In the beginning, there's several moments of relish where people just say perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And she has because she doesn't understand, she has no hesitation of just taking her clothes off to like do something
she doesn't care.
real quick, and it's a running gag of people like turning around real quick to like give her some sense of privacy.
And they often utter perfect.
Yeah, exactly, and they're like Jesus. Yeah, so it's definitely like it's kind of like funny in like a meta sense that he did marry her in real life because it's like a celebration of her beauty in a way. So that's interesting.
Before she went on to become a zombie killing machine.
Yeah, exactly.
And fighting the T-virus.
Yeah, in the Resident Evil films, which I've never seen them all the way through.
It's a thing.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it has a beautiful romantic ending. It gets very emotional. I grew up watching this movie, and it's great revisiting it as an adult now. Definitely, I'm gonna say some of the comedy doesn't quite work. It's so over the top in like little moments,
super hyper realistic.
But okay, real quick, but what the fuck was up with Gary Oldman's pet thing? There was something weird going on.
You can only imagine that that could be anything from something from an alien planet, or even just like a designer creature of just like it's cute, it's
but
cuddly,
he has but it's weird in the way he's into it.
The moment when he's choking and he like goes through everything in his desk and finally that pops up and he's kind of like wait you like get me there and you're like this thing just like hey buddy like you
this
think this
like
really gonna save
it's
you?
Basically like
it
a
matches
tiny like
it's like an elephant
it's like
sloth
elephant
thing.
slug. It has these like big blue eyes
and his trunky nose
and he wraps it around and it's like strokes. It's very weird because you know how evil he is. It's almost like stroking the cat. But it's like there's something weird about it.
It kind of reminds me of Alex and his snake or something.
Yeah. But okay, I just wanted to bring that up because it was fucking weird.
That thing is weird. I don't ever remember hearing what the species is called, and it lives in his desk in a very cramped little box or something.
So we can only imagine. But anyway, so I think it can be very in your face movie with its style, but I think it as an action and sci-fi film, it can be a little bit wacky. During the diva's performance, it almost comes like a dance sequence with her fighting in her cut. So it's definitely kind of a cheeky kind of movie in a way.
Yeah, it's once again, it's like he tries to find beauty within some of the violence. And like we were saying, like where Lilu is kicking a bunch of ass, and it's like you say, it's more like a ballet for a minute or something.
And they definitely play on Bruce Willis's like quippiness from Die Hard. He's still kind of a smart ass.
Oh, definitely snarky.
Yeah,
very snarky.
Exactly. So.
And it is very sweet though that it's like you have these elements and then this focal point, which essentially is life. Lilu represents very much life and learning to love, and until she accepts that love and that love exists, does everything actually activate?
Everything comes together without spoiling the film. So, I recommend it. I check it out. It's a fun time, and it's rated PG-13, whereas like Leon and Nikita definitely more much more realistically violent. It still is violent,
but much more balanced.
But a bit more like a comic kind of, more like that PG-13, a little more.
Yeah, you're gonna shed that violence off pretty quickly.
There's not like a ton of bloodshed in it, and it's not like horrific. It's more like kind of just a little shoot 'em up kind of.
Yeah, it's more of the storytelling.
Yeah, so I thought it was great. Final thoughts for you?
I will only continue to enjoy this movie in the future. I don't know if I've ever watched any commentaries or anything that's out there for it. I'm sure there's a pretty even more deluxe edition than what I previously owned on DVD.
Well, the 4K's out now. I think it has a ton of special features. I remember the Super Bit DVD coming back in the day. Like I remember, So
I originally owned it on VHS.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Everything has been an upgrade since then. But the box, even on VHS, was this beautiful shiny box. And
was the original box shiny?
Yeah,
okay.
Cool.
Did they ever release like a widescreen? Is this in 1.85 or is this in like full scope?
It would more commonly have been the smaller frame back in the day.
Okay. Either way, I mean, nowadays it's only going to be available in widescreen, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, I mean, more screens are adapted to widescreen.
Yeah.
Whereas back then it would have been almost pointless because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I still got like widescreen tapes. You're just stuck with the black bars.
Right, but if you didn't have
see the whole frame.
Yeah, if you had a small TV, it's very limited scope.
Yeah, but anyway, what is to leave a comment below, what is your favorite Besson film if you've seen it? Like, I'm assuming most people are going to say that they've only seen Léon or The Professional.
Yeah, or go ahead and, it's a very quotable film. Throw your favorite moment or quote in there.
Exactly. I think that's probably a more acceptable question.
Yeah. Very unique movie, considering it has a lot of influence from other things. It's clearly influenced a lot of things itself, but then it doesn't necessarily pull some of the obvious influence. Like you can't point it at really anywhere and go, oh, Star Wars or something like that. Like it's just not that kind of movie. It's
definitely a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Heavy metal even.
Oh yeah.
Like
the whole thing sounds like a heavy metal
story. What's that
called?
Like Morbius or something?
Mm-hmm. Morbius style art. Yeah.
So definitely a lot of influences mixed in. Like when they showed Zorg, I was like, "That's Tyrell."
Oh, right. Very much Tyrell core.
But even that harkens back to like Metropolis and stuff like that.
Totally.
But favorite moment. Okay, so I think I like that one. So what's your favorite moment?
My favorite moments have definitely changed over the years of watching this movie, and I think that that's a testament to as you live your own life and have your own experiences, you will connect differently with certain scenes in the film. Where I think when I was younger, once it hits that diva scene and you're seeing all these fight scenes happen, you're just like, well, that was great. And then it literally ends with audience, clapping and stuff. Yeah. But then as it goes on, it's some of those more intimate moments, the humanity, in the way that the soundtrack comes in with her, I think the cab scene, where she's asking for help, it hits me a lot differently than it used to. When you're younger, you're almost like, okay, come on. And then as you're older, it's like, come on.
The scene where he's describing her on the phone to his boss,
and you can tell
the musical cue, he's fallen in love with her just right away. Even though she doesn't even speak speak his language.
Yeah.
And that moment, but it's gotta be the end of the climax. I won't ruin it,
Don't
but it's a great moment. That's kind of always been my favorite moment of the film.
Oh, it
seals
it up in such a beautiful way.
So I find it's not only action, it's pretty funny and like weird style, and it's also I find it pretty romantic.
Yeah, it definitely hits you in the right way.
So, all right. Any final thoughts outside of that?
Just keep introducing this movie to people you like and that haven't seen it, because I don't think there's anybody that. I mean, some people didn't like it when it first came out, but I think now overwhelmingly people accept that it is just
I think
a great
it's a pretty well liked film.
Yeah.
Moment is the end of the film, and I find it's very romantic and it's a very touching moment, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but yeah, it's definitely worth seeking out. So thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us during this conversation. There'll be plenty of, like, I guess we're gonna do like live streams once we hit that level, and plenty of other stuff. So again, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you later. Bye.